That will truly mess up our day. Greetings, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that you are here. Today's nonsense is back in Historic, and you know, darn it, folks, we are trying every possible angle to make Historic as approachable as possible. Today's deck, I would call maybe an approachable deck. Budget might be a little bit of a stretch, because we do have several rares in it. But most of the deck is commons and uncommons. The only rares we have in the main are some lands, a couple of rare lands, and Skycat Sovereign and Hushbringer. Currently, Hushbringer, I think, is very, very well positioned in the meta, because since the Pro Tour, Golgari Sacrifice has been very popular, and Jund as well, for the record. Creatures entering the battlefield or dying don't cause abilities to trigger is very, very relevant. It's quite possible that the deck would be better with 4 of these in it. It's also lifelink. It helps in the race situations, you know? But I only have 2 because we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. So as few rares or mythics. Obviously, no mythics in this whole deck as possible. The other rare is Skycat Sovereign. 2 mana, 1/1, flying. Skycat Sovereign gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with flying. You can pay 4 and create a white cat bird creature token with flying. Folks, it's a cat bird. Look at that. Look at that token. Pretty awesome. But it's one of those cards, plays much better than it seems, and it already seems pretty good. It is a very, very strong thing. You can be attacking really, really hard, even as soon as turn 2. If you have, you know, 1 drop on 1, this on turn 2, you attack in for, you know, a couple of damage. But then on 3, you could theoretically go 1 drop, 1 drop, 1 drop, or something silly, and just be really swinging and hard. Also, we have some Flying Lords and stuff as well, so very, very powerful card. And post Board Sweeper, which this deck is really, really weak against Board Sweepers, this does allow you to rebuild to a certain extent. If you get their life total down low enough to, like, let's say, you know, 4 or 5 or something, just slam a Skycat Sovereign and, you know, make a couple of cat birds and win the game, right? So very, very strong. I recommend these highly. As far as the rest of the deck, all commons and uncommons for the rest of it, obviously outside of lands. The key ones you got to watch out for, favorable ones. 2 mana, creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. Empyrean Eagle. 3 mana, 2/3, other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. So, both of these very, very good. They're basically Flying Lords, you know, for some kind of tribal deck. And then Rally of Wings also is not a Lord, but does come out of nowhere. 2 mana, instant. Untap all creatures you control. Creatures you control with flying get +2/+2 until the end of turn. So you just crash in for, let's say, 5 or 6 damage, and then untap with Rally of Wings for like 15 damage or something. Really, really ridiculous. But also just relevant, you know? You have a 1/1 and a 1/1 attacking, you know, well, that's a 2/1, but you have a 1/1 and a 1 and 1/1 attacking. You just untap, make them deal 6 damage. Suddenly that might change the way your opponent attacks next turn and stuff. You can play in your opponent's head that way. This can also be used on blocks, right? So you can untap all your creatures to block maybe their important life gainers, you know, if they attack with Soul Warden or something like that. You can untap your creatures if it's important enough to get rid of and kill it off, right? Those sorts of things, combo pieces or whatever, right? So can be used both, mainly offensively, but can be used defensively as well. So this is kind of our Lord's package. As far as our actual flyers, you've already seen these 2, but Spectral Sailor, 1/1 flying flash, you can draw cards later. Siren Stormtamer, 1/1 flying, but will counter a spell or ability that targets you or a creature you control if you pay a mana and sacrifice it. Loyal Pegasus cannot attack alone, but it is a 2 mana, or I mean a 1 mana, 2/1 flying. So, very aggressive all on its own. And then some Healer's Hawks for both, you know, flying and lifelink. Do what they do, right? And then just the Empyrean Eagles being able to attack in pretty aggressively. Very, very nice. The last couple of cards, Lofty Denial, counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. If you control a creature with flying, counter that spell unless its controller pays 4 instead. So in this deck, there's going to be very few times we don't have a creature with flying. So this is essentially, you know, a more powerful mana leak, right? So very, very good card. And the last card is just a couple of Winged Words. It's a divination, 3 mana, draw 2, but it gets 1 cheaper if you control a creature with flying. So since we're almost always gonna have a creature with flying, it's basically 2 mana, draw 2, which is pretty good. So all that said, we're trying to get aggressive and beat down. Let's see if we can do that. All right, folks, we're up against Blackheart, and this is not a great hand, but it's a fine hand. You have Siren Stormtamer, Winged Words on 2, you know? We also potentially have Lofty Denial for interaction down the road, so... It is inconvenient. If they counterspell our Winged Words, we're a little upset. So... that would be sad. Oh, Prosperous Innkeeper. Our opponent is on combo. Well... yeah... I don't know, then. Yeah, I guess... we are gonna draw with Winged Words here. But we also might lose because we did this. I think we've got to, because we might not hit lands, and if we just get stuck on 2 lands for the rest of the game, we'll never win, right? Like, that's for sure. Okay, Skyclave Apparition, that was great. Holy crud, folks. Yeah, this is exactly what we were looking for. This could not have gone better. So I guess we're gonna Siren Stormtamer, Healer's Hawk, and pass. We did want another land, but we've got another land to draw it. Okay, Ephemerate, sure. All right. Well, maybe our opponent's not on combo, folks. They could just be on Blink stuff, because that's definitely what appears to be happening here. Yeah, our opponent is eating us alive. Oh no! Elite Spellbinder is very, very good here. All right. Yeah. I mean, unsurprisingly, they take our Empyrean Eagle. Hey, we do get a land. Feels good, man. All right, well, we are going to run out Empyrean Eagle. Our opponent did use a treasure earlier, so there's, you know... if they had Collected Company in their hand, they would not have done that, right? They would have used the treasure to cast their Collected Company. Okay. This is going very poorly. It's alright. I guess Hushbringer. And we're going to leave up Lofty Denial now. But so far, everything has had an end of the battlefield effect. So Hushbringer shutting that down would be very, very nice. That's also why we're leaving up Lofty Denial, is to prevent our opponent from... you know, counterspelling their way out of it. Opponent. Militia Bugler. Fine. I'm not thrilled about that, because they might have another Skyclave Apparition. They also might have a way to bounce it or something. But, you know, what do you do? Alright, Empyrean Eagle, come on down. We're not going to get rid of this, because obviously if it's just Skyclave Apparition, it doesn't get us too bad, because of course the Hushbringer shuts that down. We're worried about some way of them, you know, really messing everything up. Okay. Opponent has Draneth Magistrate. That was rude, but fine. We are going to play our land. I think we're going to try and race now. We're tie ball game. We have 3/3s. They have a bunch of little stuff. No, there's the Collected Company. Maybe that's what we were supposed to save it for. I'm not sure. Okay. Opponent has their stuff leave. We get our stuff back. Well, then we're just going to attack with the Hushbringer. Gain back up to 12. And Blackheart going to scoop him up. Yeah, more I think about it, folks, the 2/3 Vigilance would have been annoying, but we probably should have let that resolve. I think that was a mini punt there. Like, admittedly, it turned out okay, but I still would have preferred to make the right decision, and I think I panicked because we didn't have a lot on board. Since we had the Hushbringer down, and that was kind of really messing up their life, it was probably just better to allow anything not a removal spell for Hushbringer or Collected Company, because the Collected Company allows you to get so much value, you know? I mean, it turned out okay, but yeah, maybe a little punt. Either way, good game, opponent, good game. All right, folks, here we are on the draw, but this hand looks good. We'll keep it. Truly Woolly, our opponent, starts on Shipwreck Marsh. And yeah, I think we're just going to go ahead and Healer's Hawk pass the turn. And I think we're going to plan on Skycat Sovereign this turn, because it can attack as a 5/5 next turn if we cast these pre-combat. Expressive Iteration. Oh, crud. Well, let's hope our opponent isn't running Anger the Gods, because that will truly mess up our day. Expressive Iteration finds a couple of cards. Shipwreck Marsh enters. Thoughtseize is going to take our Rally of Wings. Inconvenient. Yep. Indeed, this is unsurprising. Hey, that's a good one. Well, they don't have a second red source yet, so we're hoping that means they can't Anger the Gods. So we're going to try and set up lethal next turn. We'll see. Collected Conjuring? No! Alright. Well, that was fun. GG, opponent. GG, you got us. You were playing a Collected Conjuring deck, though, so I can't really complain. That was alright. Good game, opponent. Good game. Alright, folks. This is Grand Funk, and this is not a good hand, but we are going to keep it. We have a couple of attackers. We have a rally, or we have a pair of Rally Wings. You know, provided we draw into more attackers, like, you know, it should be fine. We'll see. We will see. All right, folks, here we go. Looks like we can play Siren Stormtamer. Come on down. Opponent has Spire Bluff Canal and a Shock. That would be inconvenient. Our Loyal Pegasus cannot attack alone. That would make things complicated. Yeah, Unholy Heat. Well, that is inconvenient. Well, I think that might mean we lose. Opponent has Dragon's Rage Channeler, sure. And no Unholy Heat. Alright, well, let's start here then. Opponent does let us draw. Okay, well. Loyal Pegasus. Number 2. Opponent opts. Surveils. To the bin. Scries. To the bottom. Loyal Pegasus resolves. Opponent has a Sprite Dragon. Does not attack. Hey. How about that, huh? Yeah, actually, let's just go with the get more creatures on the board route. And opponent takes 6. This is kind of what we expected. If we could have gotten in a good chunk more if we had gone with Favorable Winds and then Rally of Wings, but then Empyrean Eagle wouldn't be out. Oh, darn it, folks, come on. They seriously have 3 Unholy Heat. Oh, okay, well, they have Pillar of Flame. That's fine then. All right. I was a little chagrined because I was like, this is one of the best cards in their deck, right? And for them to have 2 in the top quarter is annoying, but not unreasonable. It would have been a little unreasonable if they had 3, you know? Sure. Down to 8. I think we're going to Spectral Sailor on their turn. Opponent opts. Sprite Dragon grows. Yeah. Sends away a Mystical Dispute. Certainly digging for lands here is what I expect. But I can't really be sorry for our opponent when they got rid of a Spirebluff Canal, you know. They obviously had the opportunity to get lands. Alright. Spectral Sailor, come on down. Hey, how about them apples, huh? Oh, let's get in. And Rally of Wings. GG, opponent. Yeah, I mean, it kind of stinks for them folks being stuck on 2 lands, but again, they're the ones that got greedy and got rid of that land, you know? So I think this one's a little bit in their court. So GG, opponent, GG. Folks, this is a 1-lander. If we knew this card was a blue mana, we would snap keep this, right? If we knew that. Because this is a great hand, and it only needs 2 to function. Like, we would do fine with 2 mana, but we're gonna have to send it back, because we don't know that. And if we don't know that, we might not play Magic, you know? So, alright, we're gonna keep this. Send back an island, I guess. Pass turn. Opponent has a Temple of Malady going to Scry. Scry goes bottom. Alright, there we go. Our opponent thinks we're roping them. We're sorry, we're not roping you, opponent. Just our client decided to shut down, which is really inconvenient. Alright. Alright. Opponent not going to gain any life here. Opponent not going to make any food here. Alright, we're going to Rally of Wings because we do want to kill off that Gilded Goose. It can be annoying. Just blocking us every turn. And sure enough, Cordobas scooping it up. Holy crud, folks. That was potentially a disaster with the client freezing up that way. I apologize, opponent. I really was not intending to rope you. Sorry about that. But good game nonetheless. All right, folks, welcome back. Here we are back here looking at our deck. And honestly, we can't complain. We played just a couple of games. We won most of them. We only lost 1 game. It was to a collected Conjuring list. And admittedly, I scooped a little bit quickly because they had the Anger of the Gods, and we just weren't going to win that. So, you know, it is what it is. But that's the only loss we had. So I really can't complain about the deck as is. Again, if you're on an extreme budget, this could be built without rare lands, and it could be built without these 2, theoretically. I would try and get at least 2 of these as soon as possible because it's very good in the meta, and I think our games showed that. Just the lifelink is nice for in racing situations, but also shutting down, entering the battlefield, and dying triggers very, very strong considering what we expect to see. And similarly, Skycat Sovereign ends up being a magnet for removal for sure. But even just getting in 1 hit can just change the entire course of the game. So, very, very worth it. And that's if you're on extreme budget. I would build towards these. The other cards you might build, if you were trying to do this on a little less of a budget, would be maybe go towards Spirits. We actually have a fair number of Spirits in here just as the deck is, right? Our Spectral Sailors are Spirits. Our Empyrean Eagles are Spirits. The fact that we could get a Lord in Supreme Phantom, other spirits you control at +1/+1, while it just also having flying just fits with the rest of the theme of the deck. It's also a 2-mana flyer, right? You could do worse than this. So if we weren't trying to be so budget, you could go that direction. If you elected to go with spirits, you have some really strong spirits, not the least of which would be Rattle Chains, which is a 2-mana 2/1 flyer, flash, and when it enters, target spirit gains hexproof. And then you may cast spirit spells as though they had flash as well. So it allows you to shut off one of their removal spells as well as advance your board. That can be very, very powerful. And then also the Spectral Adversary, very, very strong card from one of our more recent sets here. 2/1 flying flash again. So just on its merits, strong. When it enters, you can pay 2 any number of times. When you pay this, cost 1 or more times, put that many 1/1 counters on it, so it gets bigger. Then, up to that many other target artifacts, creatures, and or enchantments phase out. So you can just shut down your opponent's attackers or whatever, and really, really mess up your opponent's life to a certain extent. So these are a very, very reasonable way to go. Again, we're budget conscious, so we're not doing those things. Similarly, other budget-friendly style cards you might do would be, you might have some Remorseful Cleric running around. Again, also a Spirit. I don't know why I didn't mention that. We're talking about spirits, another spirit, but also can just exile graveyards. So similar to where Hushbringer's at, this is a 2-mana 2/1 flying, relatively aggressive, but also can just shut down some of those flashing back, really large spell style decks, you know, that sort of thing. So might be worth considering if you're not on such an extreme budget. But the rest of our budget stuff here, Clarion Spirit, another spirit, so that could help. It makes spirits, so if you're doing spirit stuff, that might help. But also, just if you're casting a bunch of spells every turn, which we aspire to do, this does make spirits. So this could be another direction you go while you're still even on a budget, maybe building towards spirits, because this is just an uncommon here. But if you're not going to build towards spirits, I would not recommend this. Then if you're not trying to upgrade at all, but you might have some of these around your collection, save yourself a few wild cards. And depending on what you expect to see in the meta, can be very good. Night Veil Sprite allows you, whenever it attacks, surveil 1. So you can look at the top card of your library, put it into your graveyard if you want. You never want to flood out in this deck, and that will end the game in a hurry. So just being able to do that is kind of good. And it's another flyer. Maybe if you don't have some of this other stuff, you could do this instead. Manipulate your draws can be good. Cerulean Drake, if you're expecting to see a lot of red, which admittedly at any given time, sometimes the meta shifts that way. 1/1 flying, protection from red, and you may sacrifice Cerulean Drake, counter target spell that targets you. So this can just stonewall giant red creatures while you get in through the air. Can be very, very good, as well as stopping even potentially hand disruption spells. Your opponent tries to target you with a Thoughtseize or something, you could sacrifice Cerulean Drake to stop that. Worth considering. And the last but not least, Battlefield Raptor, 1 mana, 1/2 flying first strike. Pretty powerful base stats, right? And as soon as that first strike comes into play, sometimes, you know, like your mono red opponents and stuff like that, they're just trying to get aggressive with a bunch of 2/1s or 1/1s and things like that. This can stonewall a ton of creatures and not be forced to trade. Sometimes this can just turn out to be a really solid removal magnet, saving your Skycat Sovereigns and Empyrean Eagles and stuff down the road. I elected to go with Loyal Pegasus over it just because I wanted to be more aggressive, but the difference between a 2/1 that sometimes can't attack and a 1/2 that can always attack and blocks much better oftentimes is relevant. So it's possible straight over top of that, or you just want more 1-drops. Being able to get a bunch of 1-drops in a hurry, very, very good indeed. So all recommendations, I wouldn't mind. And as far as would I recommend the deck, I mean, of course, yes, you could absolutely get to Mythic with this deck. I 100% believe that. You know, would I put my stamp of approval? Without hesitation. Without hesitation. I think I will end up putting this in like a budget playlist, even though maybe it's a little bit questionable, but I definitely think it is affordable enough to be in that conversation, and definitely a very good deck, worth considering for sure. As far as the rest of that goes, though, I would appreciate it if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing. That really helps the channel a ton. I'm trying to move towards monetization. It's kind of a long road. So I appreciate you, and you folks have a nice day.